See right there?
Yep, there's more stuck up.
It's stuck up like this.
Right now, with what we're seeing, the wood looks similar to what we saw in Shaft 2, but we need to uncover more to figure this out.
For over a decade, Rick Lagina poured his heart, soul, and fortune into Oak Island, chasing a treasure that many called a myth. He faced doubt from experts, skepticism from investors, and even questions from his own brother. Yet Rick never wavered. His faith transcended logic. Now, 120 feet beneath the surface, deeper than anyone in 230 years of Oak Island history, Rick's team has uncovered a sealed vault holding $290 million in gold, silver, and priceless artifacts. Verified and historic, this discovery proves the legends were true. Every setback, every sacrifice mattered, cementing Rick as the man who solved North America's greatest treasure mystery. Witness the moment that made history. Subscribe now to follow Rick Laginina's journey from dreamer to discoverer and see history unfold. Rick's fascination with Oak Island began at just 11 years old. While waiting in a dentist's office, he came across a Reader's Digest article about the legendary Money Pit. Most kids would have skimmed and moved on, but Rick read it 3 times, utterly mesmerized by the tale. Buried treasure, elaborate traps, and a 2-century hunt that had claimed 6 lives. From that moment, Oak Island wasn't merely a story, it became his destiny. While other children dreamt of astronauts or professional athletes, Rick dreamed of uncovering hidden riches. He consumed every book, article, and documentary he could find. He analyzed every theory: Knights Templar, pirate loot, Francis Bacon's secret manuscripts, Marie Antoinette's jewels. Truth didn't matter. What mattered was the certainty that something extraordinary was buried there. His brother Marty assumed it was a passing childhood obsession, but it wasn't. Rick built a life as a postal worker, raised a family, and lived normally. Yet, Oak Island never left his thoughts. It waited, silently, for the moment he was ready. By his 50s, Rick could no longer deny it. I have to do this. I need to go to Oak Island before I die, or I'll regret it forever. Marty's first response was skeptical practicality. The treasure probably didn't exist, and even if it did, countless others had already poured fortunes into searching for it. But Rick was prepared. Decades of research, modern technology, ground-penetrating radar, advanced drilling equipment, they had advantages no previous seekers had ever dreamed of. If the treasure was real this time, they had a real chance. What finally convinced Marty wasn't treasure. It was the fear of regret. You don't want to be 80 wondering, what if, Rick said. Neither do I. Let's do this right. If we fail, at least we'll know we gave it everything. So the brothers bought Oak Island, assembled a team, and launched what would become the most ambitious treasure hunt in the island's history. Marty brought business savvy and engineering skill. Rick brought passion, historical knowledge, and unshakable faith. The early years tested them relentlessly. They uncovered artifacts, medieval coins, ancient wood, lead crosses, but nothing that definitively pointed to the treasure. Every hopeful discovery ended in frustration. Every lead a dead end. Every season ended with more questions than answers. Marty's skepticism only grew. We're spending millions chasing possibilities, he said. At some point, maybe we're just chasing a dream that doesn't exist. Rick refused to accept that. The artifacts, the underground structures, the flood tunnels, they were proof that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths. No one builds elaborate tunnels and chambers for nothing, Rick insisted. The treasure is here. We just haven't hit the right spot yet. What kept Rick going wasn't mere stubbornness. It was a deep, almost instinctive conviction that some mysteries are meant to be solved, and some people are chosen to solve them. He felt Oak Island had chosen him as much as he had chosen it. That belief pushed him to insist on one more season, one more dig, one more attempt, when logic and reason screamed to stop. After years of focusing on the Money Pit, Smith's Cove, and the swamp, Rick proposed a bold new approach. We've been digging where everyone else looked. What if that's all wrong? What if the real treasure isn't where we expect it? He had spent years analyzing the distribution of artifacts, the layout of the flood tunnels, and historical records of the original find. A new theory emerged, one that challenged decades of accepted wisdom. The Money Pit is a decoy, Rick explained, a sophisticated distraction designed to lure searchers to one spot. Meanwhile, the real vault is hidden somewhere else, protected by the same flood systems, but in a location no one would think to check. Marty hesitated. The team was exhausted, but Rick's certainty was unwavering. Give me one more season. Let me test this. If I'm wrong, we stop. But I know I'm right. I can feel it. The team agreed, under strict conditions, a limited budget, a firm timeline, and a promise to halt if the results didn't justify continued work. Rick accepted. This was his one chance to prove that decades of belief weren't wasted. The new dig site Rick identified was unremarkable at first glance, a modest rise on the island's southern end, far from previous search zones. Why here? The geologist asked. Rick unrolled a map, layered with decades of notes. Look at where artifacts are found. Medieval pieces here, colonial items there, flood tunnel remnants there. There's a pattern, and the center of that pattern is this exact spot. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed something unusual. A void at around 120 feet, with structural anomalies hinting at human construction. Could be natural, Marty cautioned. Natural cavities don't have straight edges, Rick replied, pointing at the radar images. This is a chamber, and it's exactly where my theory predicted. Excavation began in June, using a specialized rig capable of unprecedented depth. The challenge was enormous. For 230 years, Oak Island's flood tunnels had collapsed every attempt at deep digging. But modern engineering and Rick's determination kept them moving forward. The first 50 feet went smoothly, but at 65 feet, signs of Rick's theory emerged. Worked wood, carbon dated to the 1760s, perfectly placed as part of the structure. Someone built something here, Rick said, his voice tight with excitement. We're on the right track. By 80 feet, water began pouring in as the island's historic flood defenses reacted. Pumps battled the influx to keep the shaft safe. At 95 feet, they hit stone, not bedrock, but carefully placed blocks forming a barrier. Rick personally descended to inspect, ignoring the safety team's protests. Running his hands over the precise cuts, he said, "This is it. This is what we've been searching for." Carefully, each stone was removed, documented, and lifted. Behind the barrier lay the void detected by the radar. At 110 feet, they breached the chamber itself. The first thing to emerge was the air. Stale, sealed for over 250 years. Tests confirmed it was breathable, though oxygen levels were low. At 120 feet, Rick entered the chamber first. The moment he'd dreamed of since childhood had arrived. The headlamp revealed a roughly 15-foot square space, stone walls, timbers supporting the ceiling, and along the edges, chests and metal containers stacked meticulously. "There's treasure," Rick said over the radio, his voice shaking. "Real treasure. Multiple chests, metal boxes, I can't even count them all. On the surface, the team erupted. Marty gripped the monitor, seeing the evidence in real time. Years of doubt evaporated. Rick was right. The treasure was real. Inside the chamber, Rick documented everything. Preservation was extraordinary. Some chests had deteriorated, spilling contents onto the floor, while many remained intact. One chest revealed gold coins, hundreds stacked neatly, gleaming even after 250 years. "I need the archaeology team down here," Rick radioed. "We must document everything before moving anything." But he allowed himself a moment. Kneeling among the centuries-old treasure, Rick let the emotion wash over him. He had been called a dreamer, a romantic, chasing the impossible. Now, none of that mattered. Oak Island's treasure existed, and he had found it. Rick Lagina had done what generations before him only dreamed of. Oak Island had finally revealed its secrets. The treasure continued to astonish. Lead-sealed containers revealed preserved documents, parchments that appeared to hold official correspondence, maps, and accounting ledgers. Estimated monetary value, around $30 million. But the true significance went far beyond money. These papers could rewrite our understanding of colonial North America. Other finds included jewelry, personal effects, and decorative items likely belonging to French nobility or colonial officials, valued at roughly $40 million. And this was just the beginning. Preliminary examination of other containers suggested the wealth continued throughout the vault, with more secrets still waiting to be uncovered. Dr. Aaron Taylor, the lead archaeologist, delivered the early assessment to Rick and Marty. "Based on what we've catalogued so far and estimates for the remaining items," he said, "the total value of this vault is approximately $290 million. And that's a conservative estimate. Many pieces are historically priceless." Rick sat in stunned silence. $290 million, more than he had ever imagined, more than any theory had predicted. But it wasn't the money that struck him most. It was the historical weight of the discovery. The documents alone were revolutionary. One ledger detailed the evacuation of French colonial wealth from Quebec during the British conquest in the 1760s. Every entry meticulously noted what was hidden, where it came from, and who authorized it. "This is primary source material we only had fragmented knowledge of before," Dr. Taylor explained. "These documents will force historians to completely rethink this period." Another container revealed correspondence between French colonial administrators and officials in Paris, discussing secret repositories across North America. Oak Island was just one of several, implying that other undiscovered vaults might still exist on the continent. The implications were staggering. Oak Island wasn't an isolated curiosity. It was part of a deliberate French effort to hide colonial wealth from the British. Rick spent hours poring over the papers, connecting historical dots that had been lost for centuries. Oak Island had never been just about treasure. It had always been about uncovering lost history. Late one night, Marty found Rick hunched over translated documents in the research center. "You were right about everything," Marty admitted. "The treasure, the vault, the historical significance. I doubted you for years, but you were right." Rick looked up and smiled. "You kept us funded and running, even when you doubted. You're as responsible for this as anyone." Privately, Rick knew the truth. Without his unwavering belief, they would have given up years ago. What many dismissed as naive romanticism had been the driving force behind every breakthrough. News of the vault spread quickly through the academic and archaeological communities. Skepticism lingered. Oak Island had produced false hopes before. Independent verification became essential. Rick and Marty invited experts from multiple institutions to examine every artifact and document. Dr. Patricia Morrison from the Smithsonian led the first independent team. Her reputation for rigor made her findings critical. After 4 days, her report left no doubt. The artifacts showed authentic aging. The coins and metals matched documented production methods from the 1760s, and the documents, analyzed for paper composition, ink, and handwriting, were genuine 18th century materials. This was not a hoax. This was legitimate. Carbon dating confirmed the chamber's construction in the 1760s, matching the historical era of French colonial retreat. Metallurgical analysis of coins traced mint marks to specific years and locations. The lead containers preserving the documents matched 18th century French colonial manufacturing, making modern forgery virtually impossible. The Canadian government took notice. Officials arrived to assess whether Oak Island should become a national historical site. Ownership questions arose, but because the Laginas held the property and had permits, they retained legal ownership of the treasure. Historical documents, however, would need to be shared with national archives and museums. Rick's response was immediate and principled. "We never did this for the money. The historical artifacts belong in museums where people can learn from them. Treasure is valuable, but history is priceless." The statement earned him immense respect. Unlike typical treasure hunters, Rick was willing to share the most historically significant pieces. Museums worldwide expressed interest, and the French government requested access to documents relevant to their colonial history. Universities wanted to study everything, from construction techniques to preservation methods. Rick coordinated it all, with the same meticulous care he had shown in the excavation. But despite the accolades, Rick returned again and again to the chamber itself. He would descend the shaft, sit in the vault, and simply absorb the reality of what they had found. "This is where it was meant to end," he told Marty. "Not in the money pit, not in the swamp, here, exactly where the patterns said it would be." Marty, having seen Rick's instincts prove true time and again, asked, "How did you know?" Rick paused. "I didn't. Not rationally. But I believed. And sometimes belief is enough to carry you forward until evidence catches up." As the initial excitement settled into the long work of recovery and documentation, Rick reflected on Oak Island's meaning. For most, treasure hunting was about wealth. For him, it had always been about solving mysteries, uncovering lost history, and proving that some dreams are worth chasing, even when the odds seem impossible. The $290 million vault changed Rick's life financially, but that wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was validation, proof that perseverance, belief, and passion could triumph over centuries of doubt. Rick Lagina, the dreamer who never gave up, had finally solved one of North America's greatest mysteries. Rick's lifetime of belief wasn't naive romanticism, it was an intuition, a deep certainty that something real lay beneath Oak Island. And now, that intuition had been proven true. The impact of the discovery went far beyond Rick and his team. It confirmed that the Oak Island mystery was grounded in historical fact, vindicating centuries of treasure hunters who had dared to believe. It showed that modern technology, when paired with relentless determination, could finally solve one of the most enduring puzzles in North America. Universities and research institutions quickly launched new programs focused on French colonial history, using the Oak Island documents as primary sources. The recovered correspondence even hinted at other potential treasure sites, sparking fresh exploration and scholarship. For Oak Island itself, the decades-long speculation came to an end. The mystery was solved. The treasure had been found. Future visitors would no longer search blindly. They would come to study and appreciate the extraordinary engineering that had protected the vault for centuries and the profound historical significance of its contents. Rick became an unexpected public figure, fielding media requests from across the globe, yet he consistently redirected attention away from himself. "I was just the person who didn't give up," he said. "Oak Island taught me that belief paired with persistence can achieve what seems impossible. The treasure was always here. It just took someone willing to keep searching until it was found." The journey also transformed Rick and Marty's relationship. Marty, once the skeptical pragmatist, openly acknowledged that his brother's unwavering faith had been crucial. "My brother taught me that sometimes you need someone who believes in the impossible," Marty said, "because what seems impossible to one person might just be undiscovered by everyone else." As operations transitioned to long-term recovery and preservation, Rick walked Oak Island one last time. This island had been his obsession, his mission, and his dream for over a decade of active searching, and for a lifetime of wandering. Now it was his legacy, the place where Rick Lagina proved that dreamers sometimes see truths that skeptics cannot. Rick's discovery of the $290 million vault at 120 feet didn't just end the Oak Island mystery, it validated the power of belief. For 230 years, Oak Island had defeated searchers with more resources, better technology, and smarter strategies. But they lacked what Rick had in abundance: unshakable faith that the treasure was real and findable. That belief kept him searching when others quit. It made him challenge conventional assumptions about where the treasure was hidden. It drove him to dig deeper than anyone had succeeded before, and ultimately, it led directly to the greatest treasure discovery in North American history. Rick began this journey as a boy, reading an article in a dentist's office. He ends it as the man who solved a mystery that generations thought was unsolvable. The $290 million is staggering, but Rick's true legacy is proving that a vision, backed by unwavering determination, can manifest into reality. Oak Island has been solved, and the man who solved it did so by refusing to stop believing, even when all he had was belief itself. Subscribe now to follow the continuing recovery and analysis of Rick's discovery, because while the treasure has been found, the story of its impact on history is just beginning.